Thank you for tuning in. And for anyone who's tuning in that's not subscribed yet to, guys, don't forget to like and subscribe. We appreciate all the support we can get. Talk about the rise of LA Knight. This guy, when did he first come on your scene? Was it Impact Wrestling?
The first time I remember seeing him is definitely, I want to say it was Impact Wrestling. He worked his way up, obviously, to the World Championship there. He had a really good presence. Unfortunately, there was a lot of transition during that time period and a lot of shenanigans. He then went to NWA, which is where he also did really well. And he puts the work in. He has been, this is something he obviously loves doing. He started off, for those of you who don't know, in the WWE, in their developmental. He did Tough Enough back in the day. He's even on, if you go back and you watch Triple H's old workout video, he's actually one of the guys in the back of the Triple H workout video. And he has always put the work in. He's somebody who has at different times in his life done different careers. He's been an EMT. He's working on the side, working towards wrestling.
He was on that reality show Hero with The Rock.
Absolutely. Well, people forget he's 40 years old.
Yeah.
He didn't start doing this yesterday. He's worked his way up and worked hard to get to where he's at.
And as Joe talked about Championship Wrestling for Hollywood, he also even had a brief run with Percy Pringle, Paul Bearer. So when you think about like that and you talk about the stuff he's done, as an EMT, all these things, he was always a hustler. He's always working. But what I find fascinating is once he really started, probably we'll say, hitting that stride in TNA, his character hasn't changed too much. Like he's talked about this, like he's tried to basically, he knew it was working, so he didn't deviate too much. My point is he believed in himself and, he kept working.
Well, he's very similar, and I know there's already comparisons to Stone Cold Steve Austin and some of the stuff he borrows from The Rock and stuff of that nature, but there's more of a deeper comparison to him and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Rock was a blue chipper who at a relatively young age was able to succeed and able to come in and do well. He worked very similar path to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold obviously started off in Texas, worked his way up, came to WCW, worked through the Dangerous Alliance, worked through the Hollywood Blondes, paid his dues, and then became an overnight sensation in the WWE after that, King of the Ring. Very similar for LA Knight, how he paid his dues, worked his ass off, and now people are treating him like an overnight sensation. Oh, look how far you've come in a few months. No, look how far you've come over 20 years.
What do we think about The Rock's Stone Cold ripoff claims? I think he's answered this himself. Of course, he's been influenced by The Rock and Stone Cold. He grew up watching that. He probably talks like that in his everyday life once in a while, and he's turned it up. Obviously, everybody, I know we're going. Ric Flair, Buddy Rogers. I mean, we could go on and on. Muhammad Ali.
Jerry Lawler, for Christ's sakes. He was not the original King of Memphis. Every person, Hulk Hogan, Dusty Rhodes, ripping off Billy Graham. My God, it's professional wrestling. Holy shit. If you don't borrow from somebody, you're not doing something right. Guess what? At different times in my early career, I wrestled in Shawn Michaels lookalike tights and called myself Little Mr. Perfect. Everybody rips off people's shit. If you can't get over that and appreciate the tools that people have, I mean, for Christ's sakes, how many people have ripped off Eddie Guerrero in the last decade?
Just to get us back on track a little bit here, because we talked about the early days of NWA, Championship Wrestling from Hollywood, TNA, all that stuff. But just now, let's fast forward a little bit. He goes to NXT. He gets a new name, LA Knight. He makes it work. He's a heel. He becomes a babyface. He's doing great. And then we get, I think we've already had it in the comments once. But here we go. Max Dupree. And it's not what he's looking for, obviously. He's admitted that he wasn't a fan of that. But as he said, some things happen. We won't talk about that. He asked, can we still go back to do an LA Knight? And I think that's an important thing here. Again, we talked about how he stayed the course before. He took opportunities, he took chances, but he believed in himself, and he wasn't afraid to speak up and talk to the necessary people. Hey, can we do this? If he didn't do this, we probably don't get where we are today.
All the great wrestlers, the stories that you hear is them not being afraid to go, hey, can I try this? Hey, can we try to make this work? All the way back to Hogan in the 80s and his close relationship with Vince. Stone Cold Steve Austin not being afraid to say, hey, can I do this? Even The Undertaker went away from the Undertaker gimmick and said, hey, can I try the American Badass? Can I try this version of the Undertaker?
Right.
These are people that knew who they were and weren't afraid. Same thing with Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels was never afraid to say, hey, this isn't the right path for me. We got to go in this direction. Bret Hart. So you can go down the whole list of great wrestlers, and LA Knight is smart enough to be able to know what's good for his character. He's also smart enough to know he's got a limited window.
Right.
Because of the age that he's finally gotten here, there's a limited window. My biggest fear with LA Knight is that now he's already going to be on his downward trajectory. And the reason why is because what's next for him? Yeah, you went after Roman Reigns. You lost to Roman Reigns. Who else is there on SmackDown to go after?
Absolutely. And you jumped just a slight bit ahead of me because I had one other point I wanted to bring up, and I was going to get exactly where you are now. It's just the Bray Wyatt feud. And I just wanted to bring that up because if you look at also how that was set up, he was really set up to kind of fail. He was set up almost kind of be the fodder. I mean, maybe not fail, might be harsh, but he was not the focal point of that. Bray Wyatt was the focal point. And hey, God bless Bray's soul. But what happened was, unlike other people who sometimes got overshadowed by Bray, LA Knight didn't get overshadowed. If anything, LA got over.
Well, it's a similar story to Bryan Danielson, where the WWE, when people get over organically, if the machine isn't behind them, sometimes they have a tendency of going, oh, wait a minute, that's not what's right for you. We tell you what's right for you. Yeah. Here's the direction that we're going in. And it's nothing against Bray Wyatt. Even Bray Wyatt went through it, to be honest with you, the late, great Bray Wyatt. The reason why he went through it was, once again, he got over more than they expected him to. So all of a sudden, they were afraid to really get behind him. And it took several attempts to really get behind him.
Everybody's already excited to talk about what we had just set up prior here. Obviously, where are we going next with Roman? You were ready to jump on. And look at these comments here. Joe, Seth Rollins, and that other championship. LA Knight and Logan Paul for the U.S. championship. I want to get to that one a little bit here, too, because I talked to you the other day about Gunther and how we built up, and you mentioned Logan Paul. They're still on the same show. And I said, well, we can always change things. As Randy brings this up now, and obviously you talked about it to me yesterday too, I think back to when they were in that Money in the Bank and they had those little interactions with each other. Logan Paul made the kind of comments like, look how long it took you to get here. Look how quick it was for me. And the more I think about it, to you, AJ, and to you, Randy, in the comments, I'm going to say I'm really gaining on this idea, and I think this is probably where we should go for WrestleMania because you're going to have a lot of buzz with both these guys. I say let them cost each other in the Rumble, and hey, yeah, Logan Paul, the guy that nobody really wants to be there, who's there and overachieving against a guy who's busted his ass and wasn't supposed to be there.
It's a big money matchup. It really is. To be honest with you, Logan Paul versus LA Knight could end up overshadowing whichever night that they're on the main event. If they're no matter who's the main event that night, those two could overshadow them because of how popular LA Knight is and because of how unpopular Logan Paul is.
Yeah, this is a little side quest here real quick, borrow a line from Freddie Prinze Jr., but could Logan Paul and LA Knight main event night one? Is that possible?
They absolutely could. Typically, it is for a title.
Right.
They could definitely make the U.S. Championship relevant for the first time since John Cena.
Yeah, I mean, and Gunther's already did that with the Intercontinental title. I just want to say for a second, hats off to WWE. I just thought about, because people have mentioned this, how about this for two secondary title matches at WrestleMania 40? Logan Paul and LA Knight, like we just said, for the U.S. title. Brock Lesnar versus Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship.
That could be the first time that those two secondary belts completely overshadow whoever's in the main event. Unless, of course, you do have The Rock and Roman Reigns, because it's going to be awful hard to overshadow that.